A thread by Carlos Osuita. A fake former Republican told me that President Trump said that the press is the enemy of the people. A lie, as we all know. But here's how the real enemy of the people works. From Breitbart, Oprah Winfrey. America's racial caste system was the template for Nazi Germany. Quote, Adolf Hitler drew inspiration from American eugenicists in formulating the Nuremberg laws, noted Wilkerson and Winfrey. We see this claim in multiple places. From History.com, eugenics. Quote, Hitler didn't come up with the concept of a superior Aryan race all on his own. In fact, he referred to American eugenics in his 1934 book, Mein Kampf. This claim is a fabrication. It's a lie. Fake news. First, we need to check Mein Kampf to see exactly what Hitler said. Nothing whatsoever about American eugenicists. Full text of Mein Kampf. Search America and see for yourself. Gutenberg.net.au. A variation of American racism inspired Hitler, The New Yorker, How American Racism Influenced Hitler. Another total fabrication. In fact, Hitler showed absolutely nothing but contempt for the United States. Hitler's ideas were long-held German ideas. Here we go. ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Was Nazi eugenics created in the US? Quote, Black downplays or often seems to ignore the long history of eugenics and racial hygiene in Germany itself. The two were separate in the early decades of the century, but gradually became more synonymous by the 1930s. Absent from his bibliography, for example, is Sheila Faith Weiss's excellent book on Wilhelm Schallmayer, one of the early German eugenicists who left a lasting imprint on the movement. Germany had a far more active and virulent pro-Nordic and pro-Aryan tradition than most mainstream American eugenics. And although some US eugenicists were Nordic supremacists, Madison Grant and Lothrop Stoddard come immediately to mind, the US movement was not primarily about creating a master race. It was about preventing what appeared to be degeneration of the old American stock owing to the un-Darwinian practices of allowing supposedly hereditarily defective people to reproduce. There was a lot of racism, especially focused on African Americans, nativism, and jingoism in the writings of American eugenicists, but it was not primarily couched in the overt language of Aryan Nordic supremacy. End quote. Hitler was directly influenced by eugenicist Alfred Plotz, who published Racial Hygiene Basics, Grundlinien einer Rassenhygiene, in 1895. He is the father of the Nazi eugenics movement. This is not a state secret. The movement to blame the US for Nazi eugenics became popular after the election of Donald Trump. Still support Democrats? These rat bastards are revising history to get Trump. Alfred Plotz founded the German Society for Racial Hygiene, I can't do the German, in Berlin on June 22nd, 1905. Plotz supported Hitler because he said that Hitler would mainstream the idea of racial hygiene. The American Race Betterment Foundation was founded in 1906, a year after Plotz's Racial Hygiene Society. Jim Crow laws were not eugenics. The first American compulsory sterilization law was passed in Indiana in 1907, but not for race, All of this bullshit is ridiculous because not only is it not true, Hitler's eugenics program consisted of genocide. Do you think there may be a slight difference between genocide and no genocide? Do you know why these rat bastards lie this way? The First Amendment. In Hitler's Germany, they'd be dead. So they used their freedom to try and defeat a man who, as a human being, is a billion times better than all of them put together. Imagine surviving the hell of Normandy and Iwo Jima only to be told 80 years later that you fought for the Nazis. President Trump, after you win, I expect you to unmercifully grind their faces in their defeat. You don't have to do it publicly, but I hope you humiliate them until they all have total mental breakdowns. This is evil. Winning isn't enough. They have to pay for this. I had some poor guy tell me tonight that if the Democrat Party implodes, that'd be bad for the country. That was the rationale the Republicans used for always saving the Democrats from themselves. Let the Democrats implode. They'll be replaced. And if they aren't, too bad. You know what'll happen? Even if there are only Republicans running unopposed for every race, they'll compete by outdoing each other in Trumpness. Trumpification, baby. Delivering is the new normal. Sanity is the new normal. A final note. Whatever deficits we've had as a nation, there were always people fighting them tooth and nail. That didn't happen in Germany. They loved them some Hitler. Until they started losing. Then they were sad. And after the war, they lied and said they had to go along. Not General Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck, the most successful military leader in the history of warfare. In World War I, he and his 3,000 Germans and 11,000 African Askaris tied up 300,000 Allied troops in East Africa for all of World War I. He never lost a battle. Von Lettow-Vorbeck spoke fluent Swahili and was the only German who promoted Africans to officers. He got no aid from Germany, so he raided the Allies and used their weapons. He salvaged cannons from a sunken warship and used them as artillery. After the war, he refused to stop fighting until he got a hand-delivered order personally signed by the Kaiser. The furious Allies arranged it. Von Lettow-Vorbeck also warned the British to not mistreat his African soldiers. He stayed in Africa until they were all released. Back in Germany, he defeated the communists in the German Civil War. His reward was to be accused of trying to overthrow the government he just defended, so he was canned in 1920. Everyone was afraid of him. When Hitler was appointed chancellor in 1932, von Lettow-Vorbeck became a vocal opponent of the Nazis. The Nazis won enough seats in 1933 to appoint Hitler chancellor again, and on March 23, 1933, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act made Hitler absolute dictator for 4 years. Duh. After he became absolute dictator, he abolished all opposition parties. The day before President Hindenburg died, the Reichstag abolished the position of president. Hitler was now official head of state with no means of removing him from office. The power was given to him by the Reichstag, but Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck would not shut up. Finally, Hitler called him to his office, and in front of an audience of high officials, he offered the general the ambassadorship to the British court. Von Lettow-Vorbeck stood, straightened his tie, and smoothed down his suit jacket. "Go fuck yourself," he said, and walked out. One of his former officers later said to a British historian, "I'm surprised he was that polite." Von Lettow-Vorbeck remained in Germany, untouched and unharmed, bad-mouthing Hitler the whole time. After the war, he fought for 10 years to get his African veterans pensions. They got them. General Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck died on March 9th, 1964, at the age of 93. A man's man. I can't describe the hostility I feel toward Trump's enemies. Their worst punishment is his success. The benefit is that Trump's success is our success. Trump wins on election night. Guaranteed.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.